Hi 7th grade authors, today it's time to begin your first paragraph of your personal narrative, and that's going to be your introduction. The first thing we want to do before we start typing out our introduction is we want to give our personal narrative a title. I decided to title mine Sticking With It, and I chose that title because my personal narrative is about a particular event in my life, which was when my best friend quit playing softball, and how that was a really hard time. That season of softball that I played, it was really hard to get through that season because, she quit and I didn't have my buddy with me anymore. And my parents made me stick with it. I wasn't allowed to quit. So that's why I decided on my title. When you title yours, you want to think also about, what your personal narrative is really about and coming up with a title that relates. Now, you may have noticed that I did not capitalize all the letters in my title, so I wanted to just go ahead and quickly review what to capitalize in a title. So it's important to remember that, in general, these are the following rules you have to adhere to. You want to capitalize the first word, capitalize the last word, and then you want to capitalize the important words. And you might be thinking, well, what are the words that are important? So generally that would be adjectives, adverbs, nouns, pronouns, any kind of conjunctions, particularly subordinating conjunctions, and then verbs as well. Words that are not capitalized in titles, these are in general not capitalized. Articles, we learned about those when we were going over the parts of speech, a, an, and the, unless they're the first word in the title. Then you do want to capitalize them. Remember that rule that said capitalize the first word. So if the first word is the, you need to capitalize it. Also, words not capitalized would be short words, like words that are less than 5 letters, prepositions, and that's why I didn't capitalize with, because with is a preposition. So just some quick little tips about capitalizing titles. Now remember, I'd set my document up to be double spaced, so that's why you're seeing that larger space in between. And then I want to go back to left align so that I can start typing out my introduction paragraph. I'm going to hit the Tab key on my keyboard, and you'll notice that it kind of jumps in. And then I want to start with my hook. So my hook is going to be an attention grabber, and I like to use questions for my hook. That's just my favorite way to grab the attention of my reader. And I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say, athletic, not the first word that comes to mind when I describe myself. So that's going to be my first sentence. It's my attention grabber. It's my hook. Also notice that I am using the first person pronoun I. This should be written in first person point of view. The next few sentences in my introduction are so essential because my reader doesn't know anything about this time in my life. My reader doesn't know anything about when I played softball. So I need to set up a little bit of background information, and I need to do that in a pretty brief way. You want to save those important details for your supporting paragraphs. If you start finding yourself going on and on and on and giving too many details, you need to pull yourself back and just be very brief in your introduction. It's just a preview. Just like when you go to the movies and you see a preview, you're not seeing the whole movie, you're just getting a taste for what's to come. So I want to go ahead and give some background information. So I want to say something about how I played softball, maybe what year this was, how old I was, something like that. So I'll start off by saying the year I was in 5th grade, I played softball just like any other year, and it was usually fun. But this particular year was somewhat of a nightmare. Now notice how I'm not going into details about why it was a nightmare or, what really happened. I'm going to save that for my supporting paragraphs. I'm keeping this really general, just giving my reader a little bit of background information. So now my reader understands that this is going to be about a year I played softball and how usually it was a fun time, but this particular year was not so fun. And then I can end with a thesis statement. When I feel like I've given enough background information, a thesis statement is going to come at the end of your introduction, and it's going to be one sentence that kind of proves what you're going to be referencing or talking about in your personal narrative. I think I'll say something like this. Although, and notice how I like to put 2 spaces in between each sentence. I think you can get away with 1 now. In my last college class I took, they said you only need 1, but I'm very used to doing 2 spaces. I think I'm going to say something like this for my thesis statement. Although this was a difficult time in my life, I did end up learning a really valuable lesson. And here is my introduction. Now, if there's ever a time when you see any kind of lines underneath a word or a phrase, that's Microsoft Word's way of telling you we might want to make a recommendation here, whether it's a spelling error or a grammar error. So if you right-click on it, it's telling me I should consider using more concise language. It wants me to say, but this year. Well, we know that doesn't make sense at all, so I'm going to click undo, and I'm going to ignore Microsoft Word. Sometimes the recommendations that they make, they don't actually make sense for what you're doing. It's just the program's way of trying to correct something they're seeing. Alright, so I better save what I have so far. I'm going to click save, and then I'm going to start thinking about my supporting paragraphs.